Growing up in the Rivera family was like being part of an elaborate play where I was often an unseen character, overshadowed by the lead roles of my siblings. My name is Alex Rivera, and at 17 years old, I spent my childhood trying to carve out a meaningful space in a household that seemed to celebrate everything but me. Our life in Oak Ridge, California, looked picture-perfect to outsiders, with my father, a charismatic man brimming with dreams, orchestrating birthday parties that seemed to turn our backyard into a festival. The twinkling lights, the laughter of relatives, and the overwhelming sense of joy felt enchanting. Yet, beneath that facade lay a growing resentment, simmering quietly in the background. My brother Luke, being the eldest at 16, had just recently been the center of attention for his grand birthday celebration. It was as if my parents had forgotten that special feeling of love and bonding where every child had their moment to be celebrated. Instead, they turned every event into a tribute for Luke, who thrived on the spotlight, demanding attention like a king on a throne. I remember the chaos of his birthday vividly. The yard was filled with relatives and friends, but it felt more like a stage for Luke to showcase his achievements while my heart sank deeper into my chest. I watched as the streamers danced in the soft breeze, vibrant and full of life, just like the laughter around me, yet I felt as if those colors were not for me. They were for him. My childhood memories of birthday parties flashed through my mind, each one flavored with disappointment and neglect. I could almost feel the tightening of my chest as I thought back to those times when my sister Maria and I would be forced to fade into the background, our own celebrations reduced to mere whispers when compared to the grandiose events celebrating Luke. Luke was in his element that day, surrounded by friends who clapped and cheered for him as he recounted his latest car racing adventure, slamming his hand down for emphasis on the tail. And then I drifted around the corner, and you should have seen the look on Jason's face, he exclaimed, his grin wide enough to make anyone believe he could conquer the world. I could see our parents' faces gleaming with pride, reflecting the golden sunlight while I stood sidelined, a mere spectator in my own home. "Oh, Luke, you are just amazing," my mother gushed, her eyes shimmering with admiration. The sun beat down, the warmth settling in around us, but inside I felt cold, isolated in a crowd. I took a breath, picking at the grass beneath my feet, trying to ground myself as I looked around at our relatives who seemed to cling to his every word. Aunts and cousins surrounded him like moths to a flame, eager to hear more about his conquests. I remembered my own birthday, a dimmed candle flickering in the corner of my mind, each flicker filled with memories of being forgotten or overlooked. In that moment, the bitter taste of jealousy seeped into my thoughts, mingling with my frustration. With every laugh I heard from my relatives, I could almost hear echoes of my own past, shouts of "Happy birthday, Luke," drowning out my silent cries for recognition. I recalled birthdays where Maria and I had tried to put on our bravest faces as our parents splurged on gifts for Luke, leaving us looking at our own meager presents as if they were illusions. "Can we do something with just us?" I had suggested earlier, hesitation lacing my voice, the vibes around Luke's excitement buzzing in sharp contrast. But the moment my words floated into the air, the laughter and joy shifted. Luke had turned to me, his expression morphing from amusement to annoyance in an instant. "It is not about you, Alex. This is Luke's day," he scoffed, each word slicing through me like a sharp knife. My breathing quickened, rage bubbling inside to the boiling point as I stood there, deep-rooted emotions clawing at my insides. I felt invisible, as if I had reached out to grab something solid, but it slipped right through my fingers. I had wished for even a sliver of acknowledgement, a single moment in the sunlight, but here I was, once again standing on the sidelines while the world celebrated Luke like he was something celestial. "Alex, come help with the drinks," my father called from the other side of the yard, oblivious to the storm raging in my heart. I forced a smile, masking my inner turmoil, and made my way over to assist. As I filled cups with lemonade, I caught snippets of conversations that triggered a tidal wave of feelings. "Did you see Luke's latest video? He is going to be famous, just you wait." My fingers trembled slightly as I poured, the liquid splashing over my hands. The warmth of the sun felt like a taunt against my cool demeanor, and I wiped my hands on my shorts, trying to scrub away the sense of bitterness that clung to my skin. "What a celebration," one of my aunts exclaimed, her face sprinkled with joy, making me want to scream. "No one throws a party like the Riveras." I forced another smile, nodding along, trying to convince myself that even one moment of happiness for them didn't extinguish my own desires for recognition. But the truth stung like a wasp's bite. No matter how vibrant the decorations, the lights, or the laughter, something deep within me remained in shadow, dark and unnoticed. "Alex, why don't you join us for a game?" my sister Maria suggested, her voice soft and airy, like she could sense the turmoil twinging through me. I shook my head, not ready to engage in any activity that would overshadow the reality of the moment. "I will be fine," I replied, forcing a casual tone. She gave me a slight nod, concern flickering in her eyes. "'Kay then, but remember, you are part of this family too, you know," she said, her voice carrying more weight than it should have. "It's a family celebration. Don't forget that." Her words hung in the air like the sweet scent of cotton candy, both inviting and maddening. Did she genuinely feel that I belonged in this tapestry of celebrations? I turned away, feeling the heat of anger rising in my chest. Did they not understand? My presence was overlooked even during moments where my existence should have been acknowledged. With every turn, their laughter felt sharper, each cheer a dagger twisting deeper into me. It shouldn't have hurt this much, but it did. And then came my grandparents, their warm hugs and shiny gifts barely registering in my mind as they joined the throng surrounding Luke. "What a birthday boy you are," my grandfather chuckled, ruffling Luke's hair like he was a child again. I cringed. Couldn't they see the imbalances of our family dynamic? Once again, I was left to wander within the crowd of relatives, watching as they doted on my brother while Maria stood slightly off to the side, surveying the scene with a cautious frown. "Why don't we have a quieter family activity, like board games or something?" I suggested, desperation creeping into my voice as I attempted to peel some of the attention off Luke. I felt foolish for even hoping that my words could provoke a change, but the frustration bubbled inside me. Luke turned to me, his laughter suddenly harsh against the otherwise cheerful atmosphere. "For goodness sake, Alex, it is not about you. This is Luke's day." The way he pronounced "you," as if it were a curse, sent a shiver of loneliness through me. His words hung like a dark cloud over me, raining down every insecurity I had ever felt about my place in this family. In that heavy silence, I felt the sting of tears prick my eyes, and I blinked hard, forcing them back. I just thought," I stammered, but the words fell away into nothingness like dust in the wind. Rage surged within me like thunder rolling through the sky, louder and stronger than any words I had left unspoken. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, feeling as fragile as a glass figurine on the edge of a table. "Fine, make it all about you then." I wanted to shout back at him, but the words tangled in my throat, transforming into a quiet storm of anger and hurt. I decided in that moment of despair that I would no longer let this continue, this indifference from my parents, this ridicule from Luke. Inside, a vow ignited, sparking a determination fiercer than any resentment I had ever felt. I would rise and reclaim my narrative, regardless of how long it took or what it took. As the flavors of resentment mixed with regret lingered on my tongue, I gazed once more at the laughing faces surrounding Luke. Their glee watered my thirst for recognition. But as every sound morphed into a distant roar, a quiet determination took root. I would not remain the invisible sibling in our family's play any longer. In that moment, history shifted beneath us, and I knew I was ready to rewrite my role. The days of being overshadowed were over. I would find my way out of the shadows. Weeks went by as I tried to navigate the chaos of our family dynamic that seemed tangled beyond repair. The days bled into one another, marked by silent dinners, where Luke hogged the spotlight, telling his tall tales about school or friends. Every laugh and every story pricked at my insides like needles. I could feel the dissatisfaction warming within me, igniting a spark of determination. I could not allow my brother's selfish nature to dictate our family life any longer. The nights flooded my mind with thoughts as I tossed and turned in bed, plotting and planning like a general preparing for battle. After countless hours of deep contemplation fueled by my resentment, I devised a plan that would shake the very foundation of our family dynamics. I recalled those evenings spent on my bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the anger morph into something else: hope. That hope propelled me to gather a few of my close cousins who were equally affected by the imbalance, but who had stayed silent until now. We met one day after school at a small cafe on Maple Street, the walls lined with chalkboards filled with amusing drawings and quotes. The air smelled of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries. "It cannot keep going like this," I finally blurted out, leaning in closer to them across the small table. We have to do something for Maria. My cousin Jenna nodded eagerly. She deserves better than the shadows of our family. As we reminisced about our sister's selflessness, a plan began to take shape. Together, we rallied to create a surprise birthday party for Maria, who had always been the quiet strength of our family. Unlike Luke, who bathed in self-glory, Maria quietly mended our family's rifts and held the love between us like a precious secret. She architected our laughter, held our tears, and found ways to keep the threads of our family knitted together, even while others tried to pull them apart. As my heart raced with excitement, I watched each of my cousins light up at the idea. James, the oldest of us, his cheeky grin lit the room even more. What if we decorate the backyard? You know how she loves those fairy lights. Twinkling lights it is. I brightened, thinking about how those warm, tiny bulbs could weave a magic of nostalgia and warmth. And we could whip up her favorite red velvet cake. The discussion flowed with inspiration like a sweet stream. Each one of us took on a role. Jenna would handle the decorations. She had an eye for color, making everything seem like a spread from a magazine. James agreed to bake the cakes, his culinary experiments always producing the most delectable treats. And I would take charge of invitations, collecting heartfelt messages from family, friends, and neighbors who remembered the beautiful girl who had always been at our sides. Let's also make a banner, Jenna suggested, her blue eyes sparkling with mischief. One that says, "Happy birthday, sister," but maybe with some touch of glitter. Definitely, I laughed, the idea filling me with warmth. We spent late nights at my house, huddled around my kitchen table with flour dusting the air and laughter bubbling up at every turn. The aroma of baking wafted through the air like a comforting blanket, wrapping us in anticipation and joy. Day by day, our plan came together, blooming like a flower in spring. However, an unsettling thought crept into my mind as I stacked the cards of well wishes. What if Luke found out? What if he used his charm to twist our plans around and ruin everything? Anxiety prickled at my skin, and dread washed over me as I chided myself for daring to hope. My brother had a way of bursting bubbles, whether it was his scornful remarks or simply stealing attention. During those planning days, my stomach was an inferno of nerves as I watched Luke ride the wave of enthusiasm surrounding his recent birthday party. I could hardly suppress my desire to confront him, to remind him that Maria mattered, that she was worth more than forgotten plates and half-hearted celebrations. "Hey, Alex, you coming?" Luke called out one evening after school as I grabbed my backpack to leave the house. Despite the prick of annoyance surging within, I plastered on a cheery smile as if I was only worried about him. "I heard some friends are going to the arcade." "Want to join?" "Thanks, but I have a lot of homework," I said, a wave of dread extending across my limbs. The moment could have been my chance to gather more family, but the hush between us felt insurmountable, a distance I could not cross without risking my plans. The more time I spent planning with my cousins, the more I felt empowered. Each aspect of our preparation echoed memories of the family gatherings I had cherished, where laughter filled the air with joy. The thought of showering Maria with affection filled my heart with warmth, and I almost giddy when daydreaming about how she would feel when every loved one stepped forward, whispering their thanks and sharing their joy. "I cannot believe the surprise is just days away," Jenna said one evening as we gathered around a table, strung with colorful lights and crammed with a mosaic of cards highlighting sentiments for Maria. "She will be ecstatic." "Yes, she will," I agreed, a mischievous glimmer in my eye. "And when the time comes, we make sure she feels all the love that has been overshadowed by someone." But each plan made my apprehension even greater. What if he finds out? Should we do this without letting anyone know at all? The words spilled from my mouth, fear inching into the conversation. "We have to keep it quiet," James reassured us, his usual cheerful tone turning serious. "Just think about all the happy moments you have with her. This is for her." "Okay, let's do this," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. And one by one, we each dived into the planning, hopeful in our intent. When the day of Luke's birthday party finally arrived, I felt a blend of excitement and nerves fuel my actions as I went about my day, pretending to be oblivious to the grand show my family had planned for my brother. The air was thick with celebration, laughter rippling through the house like electric currents. "Hey, do you need help with anything?" I ventured, feigning innocence, as I walked into the living room where Luke was surrounded by a crowd of friends. "Not really," he smiled, a glint of mischief in his eyes that made my stomach twist into knots. "But you can keep the snacks coming." Each conversation felt like a balancing act on a tightrope as I barely held back my secret. With every bite of cake the guests took, and every laugh that burst forth, my heart raced with the anticipation of a surprise hidden just below the surface, the depth of which they couldn't comprehend. I poured sweet tea like a robot while my mind buzzed with the thoughts of Maria's birthday bash, already set in motion. I caught a glimpse of her outside, talking to some family members while the golden afternoon sun set behind the trees, bathing her in a soft halo of light. Her laughter was a melody I hadn't heard in too long. This was a sister who deserved to shine even more brightly than anyone else. I could hardly wait for tomorrow, for the explosion of joy that would be our sweet revenge. The bubbling anticipation swirled within me like a cocktail of hope and anxiety, echoing sweetly against the back of my mind. It would be worth it to finally set the scales back in motion, moving past the cloud of self-absorption that consumed our family dynamic, breathing life into whatever warmth could remain beneath the shadows. Soon, all would be unveiled, and I would watch as the light surged through the cracks of our seemingly crumbling foundation, mending the spirit of our sister, and our family the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow that seemed to wrap our backyard in a warm embrace as evening approached. My heart raced with anxious anticipation as I stood near the gate for what felt like hours, watching everyone trickle in. Cousins and friends emerged one by one, their laughter and chatter filling the air like a soothing symphony. It felt surreal to see them all together, and I could barely contain my excitement as I saw our friends pouring back into our lives. Each familiar face that turned toward me brought a rush of warmth. I had sent out a flurry of invitations, carefully handpicking those who mattered most to my sister, Maria. Each name on that list carried memories of joy, of shared moments that enveloped my sister during times she needed it most. I chose this day intentionally to celebrate the birth of someone who truly mattered, someone who always put others before her own dreams. Standing there, I became an unseen guardian of joy. I was a spectator as the sounds of laughter washed over me, the air heavy with love and acceptance. Over to my left, a group of kids from Maria's school huddled together, their faces lighted with delight as they unwrapped a colorful gift filled with cascading ribbons. Their chatter melded into the background, punctuated by the scent of barbecue wafting from the grill, smoky, sweet, and so inviting. I couldn't help but smile as I felt the buildup of a celebration that I hoped would mean as much to her as it did to me. Then I saw her. My sister's shadow approached from the direction of the house, her silhouette framed by the fading light, her confusion unmistakable as she took in the scene. My heart did a little flip. I was bursting with energy that felt like confetti. This was the moment we had all been waiting for, the moment I had planned so meticulously. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the crescendo of emotions that would soon unfold. Suddenly, the atmosphere became electric, crackling with expectancy as I caught the eye of a few close friends. Standing together in solidarity, we shared knowing glances that bounced with excitement. Then it happened. Everyone erupted into joyous cheers and chants of surprise. The sound resonated in the air with an intensity I would never forget. For a brief second, Maria froze, caught in the web of confusion. But then her expression transformed, her eyes filled with tears of joy, squeezing out a barely audible wow, as she rushed into the arms of friends and family who embraced her in a whirlwind of laughter and love. It was as if a million tiny fireworks lit up the corners of my heart. I felt the warmth spread through me, illuminating the path I had taken to bring us all back together. "Did you really do all this?" She whispered to me amidst the chaos, her voice cracked with emotion as she finally pulled away from the crush of love. I grinned, trying to hold back my own tears. "Of course! You deserve every bit of it, Maria." Watching her smile light up the evening transformed my entire being. It was a moment that felt like sweet vindication. I had shown her and the rest of the family the beauty of connection, something that had been overshadowed for far too long. The smile on her face mirrored my own, blending the unease of the past into the sheer delight of the present. Meanwhile, my eyes were drawn to the other side of the yard, where Luke was left standing apart, navigating a party he thought would define his own greatness. He was strutting around the bonfire, his hulking presence looming in stark contrast to the laughter surrounding us. I could hear his voice booming as he spoke haughtily about his legendary car race to a dwindling crowd of disinterested friends who barely feigned interest. "Did you see the way I took that curve at 100 miles per hour?" he bragged, accentuating his words with wild hand gestures. "People here are gonna be talking about my skills for years." The girls shared bored glances, while the guys shifted awkwardly, pretending to nod along. My heart sank as I scrutinized the stark contrast between Maria, who was enveloped in the warmth of family members who raised their voices in a chorus of cheer for her, and Luke, who stood alone like an island unto himself. Why does he always have to do that? I thought, shaking my head in disbelief. He could have celebrated too, but instead, he's pushing everyone away. As the celebration unfolded around me, I bet Luke could feel the rippling effect of isolation, because at that moment, it dawned on me just how far I had come. No longer the overlooked youngest child of the family, I had seized this opportunity and become the catalyst of this cherished occasion. When tears of joy streamed down Maria's face while she held onto me, it was a reminder of everything I had sacrificed to bring our family closer together. I finally waded through the crowd, weaving past laughing children playing tag and adults gathered around the grill. I spotted Maria near the cake, an elaborate creation, resplendent with pastel frosting and topped with candles shaped like blossoms, waiting to be illuminated by her wishes. I wrapped my arms around her, our connection solid and fierce, a fortified boundary against anything that sought to pull us apart. "I am so proud to be your sister," I said softly, wishing to convey the depth of what I felt. "Oh, Alex," she sighed, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "I don't know what I would do without you. This is the best surprise ever. Look at everyone, they're all here because of you." "That's how much you mean to all of us," I replied, pulling back to meet her gaze. "You deserve this, Maria. You've always been there for everyone else." Her lips curved in a soft smile, but her eyes were teary. "You know, sometimes I think I don't show enough appreciation for you. This means so much to me." The words were so raw, so vulnerable, that I felt an unexpected wave of emotion intertwining with my own. The warmth of her embrace wrapped around me like a protective blanket, pulling me into a world where I finally felt valued. Amidst all this, I couldn't help but cast a glance back toward Luke. He was still at the bonfire, his bravado cracked by the reality that no one was paying him any attention. I could see the battle waging inside him, that desperate need to be recognized fighting against the overwhelming tide of indifference washing over him. "Hey, why don't we go grab some cake?" I suggested to Maria, nudging her gently, pulling her focus away from my chaotic feelings toward Luke. "I think they have chocolate, your favorite." "Yes, let's go," she beamed, and we linked arms, making our way to the table filled with a plethora of treats and snacks. As we approached the cake, the chaos of the day melted away, replaced by something sweet, literally and figuratively. "Everybody gather around," I called, raising my voice above the laughter that filled the air. "It's time for cake." The crowd turned, eyes glinting with joy as they converged toward the table. "Do you want to do the honors, birthday girl?" I asked playfully, prodding her to step forward. The others cheered her on, urging her to take her place in the spotlight. She grinned, the previous veil of tears now completely masked by joy and laughter. "All right, everyone on three, I want you to help me blow out the candles," Maria yelled, her excitement rekindling urgency. 1, 2, 3. An explosion of laughter erupted as everyone leaned in closer, synchronized in breath, and the candles flickered momentarily before sizzling out. Cheers erupted anew as Maria beamed, her smile illuminating the evening even more potent than the fading sun. As the cake was cut and the first slice distributed, I felt an immense sense of gratitude rising within me. The evening was a tapestry woven with colorful threads of laughter, tears, warmth, and the undeniable bond of family. Each piece was a reminder that love, authentic and pure, is a party all its own. But still, there was Luke, watching from afar as if he were a silent observer to a spectacle he refused to participate in. I could see the rigid line of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders as he gripped the edge of the bonfire, catching brief moments of joy but denying himself the experience. "Tell me you're not seriously contemplating going over there," Maria said lightly when she caught my staring. "I don't know. He will only sulk and make things uncomfortable. This is our moment," she said, her eyes filled with determination. "I know," I replied softly, still feeling the weight of empathy toward him. "But it's hard to turn away. Maybe he could. Maybe he needs to think about how to be a part of all this instead of forcing it," Maria interjected firmly. I took a deep breath, nodding in agreement. I would let this celebration envelop me for now, let the joy of togetherness and the love we shared drown out the echoes of isolation that had crept into my thoughts. Tonight was for us, a mosaic of light and laughter, and I would relish every moment of Maria's joy. All right, let's go eat. I shouted with renewed zeal, hoping my shift in focus would carry both of us away from concerns. I led her toward the table, hands interlocked, and as I prepared to catch up with the friends around us, a sense of peace washed over me. Luke was a story for another day. Today was all about the joy of Maria's celebration as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an amber glow that filtered through the balloons dancing in the wind. The party had been permeated with joy, laughter sparkling like magic in the air. I stood beside Maria, her smile radiating pure happiness, the aroma of barbecue thick in the atmosphere, mingling with the laughter and song that echoed around the yard. It was supposed to be her night, our night, a heartfelt celebration of her achievements, packed with relatives sharing stories of love and support. The colorful lights strung from tree to tree twinkled, mimicking the stars that would soon start to sprinkle the evening sky. Everything felt perfect as I watched Olivia, our cousin, flitting between guests, her arms laden with plates of cookies and cupcakes, a halo of sweetness around her. But that perfect evening shattered when the door swung open with the violence of an impending storm, and in strode Luke. The moment he entered, heavy with fury, the cheerful atmosphere dimmed. The laughter that had once wrapped us in warmth was replaced by an icy silence as everyone turned their attention to him. I could feel my pulse quicken, each heartbeat echoing louder in my ears as his gaze swept angrily across the yard, as if he were searching for an unseen enemy. He thrummed with intensity, and for a moment, it felt like the air itself stilled in anticipation of what was to come. "This is unacceptable," he shouted, his voice a serrated blade cutting through our celebrations. There was that familiar ache in my chest, a gnawing reminder of how many times I had witnessed him react with disdain to anything that stood in his way. The growing anger in his eyes felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, one that threatened to sweep through and wreak havoc at any moment. My heart raced, not with fear alone, but with resolve. Part of me had always been that spectator, the one who remained quiet while he claimed his victories with ease. But tonight, witnessing Maria's delighted expression snapped something within me. Taking a steadying breath, I stepped forward, my heart beating wildly in tandem with my thoughts. "It's not about you, Luke," I declared, firming my voice, the steel behind it surprising even me. The wind caught my hair, tangling it, but I stood my ground. I was bolstered by the loving atmosphere filling the space, an unwavering shield that wrapped around Maria like a warm hug. This was supposed to be about Maria, a celebration of the love we share as a family. His brows furrowed, the disbelief morphing his features into a grotesque mask. "But this is my day. You have ruined it for me," he spat, venom dripping from his words. The rage boiling beneath the surface was palpable, filling me with a strange mix of apprehension and defiance. I could feel the tension thickening the air like a blanket, choking and raw. "We always celebrate you, Luke. For once, it is time we honored someone else," I continued, my voice rising above the clamor of disbelief that followed my words. I couldn't help but notice his complexion transform into a vibrant shade of crimson, mirroring the glowing lights stringing through the trees, the bright contrast to the darkness that lurked in his eyes. The rising tension was like a taut rope ready to snap, and I had braced myself for the emotional backlash. Around us, family members exchanged glances, their expressions equally woven with concern and surprise, unsure of how to intervene in this escalating moment. I could see whispers pooling among them as they drew closer, sensing the shift, and the unmistakable unity I had hoped for began to emerge. "Alex is right, Luke," one voice called out, a tentative but eager resonance that encouraged others to chime in. "You've had your time too," added another voice, a reminder that he had often been the center of attention. As if struck by a sudden realization, Luke's anger began to morph into confusion. His steadfast certainty that he would draw all focus towards him abruptly crumbled as the tide began to shift. He stood there, frozen, momentarily lost, the realization of being outnumbered washing over him. The king of the day looked vulnerable, a rare glimmer of uncertainty flickering in his demeanor, something I had never seen before from him. I felt a spark of hope in my heart, illuminating the dark crevices of frustration he had once inhabited so constantly in my life. "Please," he stammered, the bravado falling away as he shifted his weight from foot to foot, the fight visibly leaking from him. I could almost see the tide wash across his features, defeat crashing against the barriers he had built. But instead of sinking into anger, he lingered in the emotional limbo, where confusion and hurt jostled for his attention. My heart swelled as it collided with the cherished joy emanating from Maria, who stood resolutely by my side, oblivious to the commotion, but completely immersed in the warmth of the moment. He opened his mouth to deliver what I expected to be a futile rebuttal. Perhaps he was reaching for a last-minute grasp at power. Surprise washed over me as he faltered, hesitating while being directly confronted by a wave of unity. I watched as several family members enveloped Maria with warm hugs, their laughter returning, booming like a soft drumbeat, pushing Luke further into the background. I felt a shift in the atmosphere, a movement like ripples on a still pond, spreading warmth and comfort, until Luke was left standing alone in the spotlight he so dearly craved. In that moment of silence, where I could hear the faint rustling of leaves above, I felt lighter, a burden I hadn't realized I was carrying lifting, floating away into the night. Maria's joy was unapologetic, radiating like a bright torch, illuminating the space and banishing the shadows Luke had cast over us for far too long. Was it possible I had finally taken a stand against the constant overshadowing, where his tantrums dictated our family's dynamics? A revolution was slowly beginning to unfurl within my heart, each heartbeat echoing a newfound strength. As he realized there were no words that could mend the rift that had formed, Luke's face darkened, his expression shifting from disbelief to anger once more, though this time his shoulders appeared rounded, as if a weight had been placed on them. He took a deep breath, inhaling as if to gather his thoughts, but with each passing second, it became more challenging to hold onto the facade he had so carefully crafted. The realization that he was outmatched began to settle in the lines of his furrowed brow. With a final, piercing glare, he threw a dark look at Maria before turning sharply on his heel, his movements rigid with indignation. The steps he took echoed in the space, reverberating like an unsteady drum as he stormed toward the door he had just entered. In his retreat, the atmosphere shifted again, filling the void he left behind with laughter. A growing chorus of chatter and celebration flooded back in as relief washed over me, sparking a jubilant mood amongst us. "Did you see that?" Olivia whispered incredulously as a group of family members began to joke about his exit. He really thought he could ruin Maria's big day, but he just made himself look ridiculous. I smiled at her enthusiasm, embracing it as a thread tying us all together, united against the common unfurling banner of his self-importance. "Yeah, he did," I admitted, relief flooding my voice. But beneath that relief, an emboldened fire simmered, inciting belief that this moment wasn't just about celebrating Maria. It also marked a turning point in reclaiming my space within the family dynamic, a space that Luke had attempted to eclipse for far too long. Suddenly, with the love of those around us, I felt invincible, the warmth enveloping me like a protective cocoon, shielding me from whatever those next awkward moments might bring. I stole a glance toward the door he had just retreated through, where a sliver of darkness lingered, but the light in Maria's eyes outshined every shadow trying to creep back in. Stepping closer to her, I took her hand in mine, raising it high above our heads in mock triumph that made her laugh. "What do you say we put on the best party ever?" I urged, the thrill of rebellion coursing through my veins, filling me with an intoxicating sense of purpose. "Absolutely. We can dance, sing, and share stories," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious as everyone around us began to gravitate toward her outlines of pure joy. As the laughter flowed back through the night like the sweetest melody, I understood that the moment was about more than just standing up to Luke. It was a glimpse into a newfound power and potential, igniting within us the recognition of our shared history, love, and strength that would only encourage more voices to join the chorus. The possibility of witnessing the threads of our family tapestry begin to weave itself differently was exhilarating, and I realized with each jubilant cheer, the unlikeliest of rebellions had begun. The air hummed with laughter, a beautiful, rolling tide that washed over our gathering like a soft caress. My heart swelled with a warmth I had not felt in a lifetime, an infinite expanse of joy that seemed to defy all my previous disappointments and frustrations. In that moment, the dimly lit backyard transformed into a sanctuary of healing, where every chuckle and every shared glance wove a new fabric of belonging. Maria sparkled under the soft glow of the fairy lights strung along the fence, her laughter ringing like silver bells, so bright and enchanting that I could hardly believe the same girl had once felt dismissed, overshadowed by the chaos. As I watched her twirl in the gentle breeze, her joy became an infectious thread, running through our family, pulling laughter out of the corners of our hearts. "You know," she called out, her voice teasingly loud over the mix of chatter, "I think we need a family talent show next time. I bet I could win with my epic dance moves." Her arms shot up in an exaggerated pose, and with that playful declaration, everyone erupted again, some rolling their eyes in delight while others clapped mockingly. Talent show. Dancing doesn't count if you're just spinning in circles. One of our cousins chimed in, a bright grin stretched across his face. "Hey, careful, or I will reveal your secret talent for eating an entire pizza in one sitting," she shot back, her laughter mingling with everyone else's, creating a symphony that resonated deep within the newfound foundation we were building. I fully reveled in her spark. Amidst the joyous atmosphere, I felt the gap left by Luke's absence widen, an echoing silence that reminded me of the confrontation earlier. Part of me knew there was a time when his laughter would have punctuated the air just as vigorously, but now, it felt more like a heavy stone settled in the pit of my stomach, bringing an odd mix of concern and relief. I had imposed the disruption he created on our lives for so long. Perhaps he would find a way to disrupt from the outside of our revelry. But for now, I chose to abandon any lingering pity for him. My empowerment was palpable, a vibrant thread woven into my very being. Sometimes, to ignite healing, I thought, you must disrupt the disruption. Can you believe we were all so unhappy not long ago? I turned to Maria beside me, catching her eye and locking it with my own. "It's incredible, isn't it?" She nodded energetically, her curls bouncing like springs. "So incredible. I can't believe how different it feels, like there's this. I don't know, a warmth." Her eyes sparkled like the Christmas lights that brightened the night, each sentence lifting the spirits around her. "I had almost forgotten what togetherness felt like," I added, marveling at the newfound atmosphere that swirled around us, enlivening every conversation. A kaleidoscope of familial affection formed after years of division. "I think Mom and Dad finally get it too." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if to keep our shared epiphany a secret. "They do. Did you notice how they were complimenting Dad's potato salad as if it were the best in the world? I mean, come on, it's good, but not best in the world good." We shared a tiny laugh, the kind that felt like a secret between us, nestling in the heat of reformation. As I surveyed the scene, my gaze ventured over to where my parents stood, animatedly discussing the day's events with some distant relatives. Their expressions were softened, tones forgiving as they exchanged words that once felt heavy with tension. "You should have seen Luke helping out at the meet last week," I heard Dad say, his voice light. "I didn't think he had it in him, but there he was, cheering everyone on like their lives depended on it." While I should have felt compelled to defend the truth, that Luke's encouragement wasn't genuine, but a mask for his own insecurities, I allowed myself to let it slide. They were learning, evolving, and opening up their hearts to the love that had always been there, overshadowed by their misguided favoritism. "You know," I thought, "sometimes you just have to give it time. Everyone heals differently. It's like a whole new beginning for us." Maria gripped my arm excitedly, tearing me from my thoughts. "We should talk to Mom and Dad about planning more of these gatherings. Just imagine it, family movie nights, game nights, all the fun we can handle. We can make up for lost time." I envisioned our nights, the laughter echoing through the walls, completed jigsaw puzzles that filled tables, and movie marathons that blended cheesy plots with our sarcastic commentary. I could almost feel the warmth of another hug enveloping me, the genuine togetherness that we had sought. "Yes," I agreed. "That would be incredible, but only if we promise not to let them turn the whole thing into a massive competition." She rolled her eyes but laughed. "Please. No one can be allowed to win Best Couch Potato Award. I'd win that hands down." "Deal. But let us hope Mom or Dad don't break out the karaoke machine again. I still wake up sometimes hearing Dad's rendition of I Will Survive." Maria's laughter rang again, rich and full, and I felt a familiar sensation wash over me. This ecstasy I had thought was locked away forever, the heat of belonging that crept from my chest to my fingertips. "This has to be the best day we have had in ages," I said, the sincerity brightening my voice. As the sun fully surrendered to the horizon, bathing us in twilight, moments of post-confrontation awkwardness remained, strains of guilt lurking, disguised under laughter. But even that felt lighter under the promise of what was to come. Parents, aunts, uncles, and distant cousins slowly started mingling closer to the patio, animated discussions culminating in shared confessions as the warmth of the bonfire flickered. "You know," one of my aunts said, pivotal and charming, "family doesn't just mean blood. It's also your choice to come together, love one another, and support each other." The words hung in the air, granting both comfort and wisdom as if bestowed from a high power. My parents nodded, their faces blushing with shame and excitement in equal measure. We certainly have made mistakes," Dad said, his voice trembling slightly. "But tonight, seeing all of you together, it reminds us how important family truly is." Mom chimed in with softly chosen words. "We let ourselves be swept away by the idea of competition and accolades, but what we really should have been nurturing is love." The significance of their words stirred something deep within me, a gentle resolve leading to a thoughtful steadiness. "They finally see it," I whispered, half surprised, half relieved. "It's happening, we are mending." In that moment, I stood a bit taller, finding my strength in the conversations swirling around me. "You know," I spoke up, voice firm, "it is okay for us all to share our triumphs, but we must revel in each person's individuality, too, instead of comparing ourselves to each other." There are so many stories to be told. A hush fell over the circle for just a moment. My words hung in the air, leading to tentative nods, glances exchanged, and smiles widening. I had never spoken so prominently to my family before. I had never claimed my space so definitively. This is what I was meant to do, I thought, my heart quickening with the exhilaration that came from unearthing buried emotions. We are stronger together when we can embrace every voice. Maria beamed up at me, her pride evident in her twinkling eyes. "You spoke it, they understand now." "Let's make a promise tonight," I suggested to everyone, feeling intoxicated by the unity that surrounded us. "To be better, listen more, and make room for joy and love. Let us create a family we can all be a part of." And suddenly, the stars above seemed to twinkle brighter, as if they were contributing to our vows. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the air, the warmth of affection igniting around the flames. As we started saying our goodbyes, I felt the thrill of renewed beginnings ripple within me, igniting not only my spirit but the emotional backdrop of our family. Maria enveloped me in a hug, her arms tight around me. "You did it, sis. I'm so proud of you." In those moments, our bonds flourished into sturdiness, intertwining with friendlier glances and smiles that resonated. I could taste freedom, a sweetness bursting at the seams of all our hearts, radiating around the yard like beams of moonlight on still water. Stepping back, I glanced around, soaking in every corner of the gathering, the laughter mingling in the air, the warmth of encouragement igniting our spirits, and the palpable shift in presence. The weight of anger, division, and competitiveness had been traded for shared moments of love and laughter. This was it. I had conquered the bitterness I had clung onto for too long, and in doing so, I had emerged victorious. As the chill of the evening wrapped around us, I stepped toward the stars fading gently behind the veil of night, knowing I had earned my place in the family narrative. United in submissions to the truth that we belonged together, I felt anticipation linger in my veins, vibrating with the promise of adventures that lay ahead. Together, we would be seen, heard, and embraced. Together, we would move forward, no longer as separate threads, but as an intricate tapestry, vibrant and whole.